I didn't think CNN could get any worse. But in this video, you guys are going to see just how bad, just how dark they really are. And the most shocking part is that a lady from California, yes, super blue, dark, evil California, a lot of times, there are some good people in California, she is the one to expose the darkness on CNN. And their darkness has to do with how they try to frame this transgender teenager who's a biological male trying to say they are a female, who's competing in some California sports right now. And despite parents standing up to the ridiculousness that this person can compete against teenage girls in the California State Track Championship, we still have California caving to this liberal pressure. It's SeanDaniel here. If you like watching CNN reporters get caught in their own game, consider hitting that like button. Before we get to the interview, let's hear some backstory about really what's going on and what contributes to these ridiculous expose of CNN's super dark agenda.
But days ago, CIF's rule change made it so she would not take away any spot from a female athlete. Hernandez is competing in the women's competition, but under these rules, she could have to share a podium with another female athlete. Now, her participation has drawn national focus with protesters outside the venue claiming she should not be allowed to compete. Those protesters have been kept a distance from the event, but they say Hernandez has an unfair advantage. Meanwhile, coaches we spoke with are telling their athletes to focus on the day.
So, Julia, what can we expect from today's competition?
Well, Boris, it's going to be an interesting award ceremony if AB places in any of the 3 events that she's qualified to compete in. Not only will those extra slots be added for the cisgender students that don't make it, they will also have extra medals, basically duplicate medals for the student that would have placed had she not been there. The Federation will also give the medal, they say, to a biological female student athlete who would have earned the specific placement on the podium. They will also be awarded a medal for that place. Now, California has allowed transgender student athletes in the high school level to participate in the gender that they identify with since 2013. But now the Justice Department is taking a look, investigating that law to see if it is a violation of Title IX, the federal law that bans sex-based discrimination for schools that receive any kind of federal funding. Governor Gavin Newsom said that these changes that the Federation has made, they are already a reasonable compromise, even though we know that in March, he did say that the participation of trans girls in sports is raising an issue of fairness.
So that ridiculous rule that California came up with as a compromise actually came into effect. This biological male got to share the first place podium because they didn't kick the biological male out of the competition, but allowed the biological male, the transgender, to compete. And these actual girls who did well in the competition, they got to share the first place podium. Now, knowing all of that, watch how CNN tries to frame this in a really evil, politically correct way. And thankfully, this lady is not having it. And watch how this lady, Julie, masterfully catches and handles these pointed questions that are not true. And the word battles the CNN reporter tries to play. Julie is sharp and she catches them all. You should pay attention too.
And joining us now is attorney Julie Hamill, who is the president and founder of the California Justice Center. Her group opposes transgender athletes competing in girls' youth sports. Julie, thanks for being with us. What do you think of the rule change in this specific case?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate CNN bringing me on to talk about this issue. And I want to be clear that my position isn't that I oppose any athletes. I want to see Title IX, which was enshrined in law in 1970s in the United States of America, in order to give equal opportunity to women and girls in educational programs. I want to see that law enforced. And many federal district courts in our country have already held that this principle that gender identity can be used in place of sex is in direct conflict with the clear language of Title IX. So what CIF has done with these new revisions to their policies, it might mitigate damages that these female athletes otherwise would have had by being ousted by a male who is competing in a girls' competition. But what it doesn't do is get at the root of the problem. The root of the problem in California is AB 1266, which became Law Education Code Section 221.5F back in 2013. That law requires school districts to allow students to compete in the athletics and use the facilities that align with their gender identity instead of their sex. That is the root of the problem. That needs to be rescinded, and the state of California needs to stop enforcing that law if we are going to abide by Title IX. If California doesn't want to do that, fine, but they need to stop accepting federal funds. That's a condition. You have to comply with federal law to accept federal funds.
What would make this fair for her to compete, for those who are competing against her? What would that kind of structure in competition look like?
Who is her?
AB.
Okay, AB Hernandez is a male who identifies as a female. What would be fair is to have Hernandez competing in the male category. It is not fair to the females competing to have to compete with a male.
Okay, so in Trump's federal funding threat, is that something, though, that would hurt all student athletes, including athletes who are assigned female at birth?
Would his federal funding threat hurt athletes?
If the money is taken away.
Right. So the law actually says that schools that do not abide Title IX or other federal laws cannot receive federal funds. So that's not Trump's fault. The problem is that the state with AB 1266.
But you understand, Julie, there's two views here on Title IX. So just to be clear, not everyone agrees with you on how you're viewing it. So in that regard, if you were to take away the funding on as it pertains to trans athletes, not everyone agrees with you. I think we just have to be clear about that. If you are taking away the funds for athletes, student athletes in California, isn't that going to hurt all of them?
Taking away federal funds is going to hurt all California kids, which is why the state of California needs to comply with federal law. It's very simple.
So when you dig into the science on trans athletes, what is really clear is that there needs to be a lot more research on a lot more trans athletes to be able to draw better conclusions about the effect of whether gender-affirming care actually reduces or eliminates the advantage conferred on an athlete who is genetically male. Would you welcome more research? Is this a situation where more research might help?
I absolutely think that more research and more careful and thoughtful discussion is necessary here. Pediatric sex change procedures are very harmful and they cause lifelong damage to children. And this is something that the United States of America needs to examine thoughtfully, and people need to be able to discuss openly without being called bigots and transphobes.
Yeah, totally hear you. So there are obviously clear benefits to playing sports, to competing in sports. So when you're looking at an athlete like AB Hernandez, what would you have her do so that she can benefit from sporting?
I view AB Hernandez as the victim in this situation. I feel for him, and I feel that he has been lied to for his entire life. And it's probably very destabilizing and difficult for him right now to realize that what he's been told is not actually reality. He cannot become a girl. What he can do is compete in the male category.
Okay,
or
let's
if
stick to sports. So you say compete in the male category or what?
Or if the state and CIF want to create a separate category for people like AB Hernandez, and that's something that they want to do, fine. It is not fair to female athletes who have worked their entire lives for this kind of competition, who also, by the way, cannot speak out for fear of retaliation, which A.B. Hernandez's mother has personally threatened against them. So it's very unfair for our girls and women in California to have to compete with males, have to share facilities with males, and then not be able to speak up about the unfairness because people are going to label them as bigots.
Julie Hamill, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Boom! CNN lady had nothing logical to say that entire time. First, comment. Oh my God, what can we comment? If you loved that, comment Julie for governor. That lady, Julie Hamill from the California Justice Center, handled that masterfully. Now, isn't it depressing and sad in a way that you cannot have a moral discussion with people like CNN reporters, with people like California officials who are in charge of impacting kids' lives? CNN reporters are involved and have the role of impacting people's mindsets and beliefs. It's sad that you cannot even have a moral discussion with them on having transgenders compete in female sports. But you have to have a legal discussion with them. Now, I know you have to have separation of church and state, but the obviousness of the evil, the darkness, you can't have a discussion on that. You have to break it down legally so that this lady, Julie Hamill over here, the attorney, has to go back to the logical point of Title IX. If you want to follow Title IX, that's how you can get federal funding. If you don't want to follow it, you're not going to get federal funding. That's the only reasoning basis you can use with these people. Not morality, not what's right and wrong, just laws, facts. She even said we need to do more studies about transgenders' impacts in competing in women or male sports. What? It's actually mind-blowing to think that these people are in charge of creating our mindsets and our thoughts and our beliefs, or they have a big impact on it by the way they're influential in media. And their whole reasoning process is, one, that nothing's evil. Two, anyone who stands up for evil, they're the ones who are actually evil. And how she spun the idea of cutting off Title IX federal funding because California doesn't want to follow the law. How she spun it to the point of how losing federal funding is going to impact and hurt girls more than a transgender competing in the competition. That is some wicked, diabolical twist, man. Wow. CNN and their producers are so evil. And this lady, Julie Hamill, again, comment Julie for governor because we might vote for her in California. She handled that so good to go with, because sometimes with these liberals, you have to go into their realm and the rules that they play by to still defeat them with logic. Like, the only thing this lady cares about is the laws and legalities on CNN. So Julie went there. But then she goes to, well, you're going to hurt more kids if you lose the federal funding. So then they change the game again to playing this syrupy emotional bribe game. And they just don't even think about morality and what's right and wrong. It's so sad that this is the rules and games of life that these people live by. But thankfully we had Julie Hamill on here, handled that wonderfully. It's SeanDaniel here. If you guys enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.